Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday and we just wrapped up week 4. You know what? Oh, wait. I think Daniel Jones just turned the ball over again while he was getting sacked. If you saw last night's game, it was good for me because apparently I was playing you, Dennis, in the show league, and all you needed was Daniel Jones not to get negative points and you would get the victory. That didn't happen for you.
Well, I mean, it didn't happen for me. And, you know, it's great when you're going into the Monday night game, the platform's projecting you've got a 93% chance to win because you've got 2 guys playing, you need 7 points. Yeah, you know. But it wasn't all Daniel Jones's fault. Joe Burrow's 0.7 points didn't do me any good either.
I know I have Joey B in another league, and it's beginning to be a little dicey putting him in there.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna start Howell over him next week.
Well, Howell's playing the Bears. You should certainly start Howell. We will get to that at the end because that is actually the Thursday night football matchup that kicks off week 5. But first, we will look back at all of the week 4 action, which this is the last week for a while that you're going to get all 32 teams and a full complement of 16 games. You'll get that again Thanksgiving week, although the games will have a lot of Thursday games. And then again in December, but we are starting bye weeks next week, so I hope you savored all the NFL action this week. We will kick off with the Chicago Bears and the Denver Broncos, 2 winless teams locked in a battle. I actually was tempted to give up on this game when it was 28-7 Chicago. I let it record and actually walked away and did some laundry until my friend said, I can't believe how this is ending. And I'm like, what, did we give up 60 points now? He's like, no, we're winning. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I better go check that out. Maybe Denver needs me not to watch to be successful. They do get the 31-28 victory in the first of what I like to call the Depression Bowl matchups of the winless teams. So it was much more depressing for the Chicago Bears. Dennis, in the second half, the Broncos kind of seemed to put some things together. Do you think that can be a turning point for this team?
I mean, it has to be, right? That at some point you've got to feel like, all right, well, what can we take away from this game? I get it. The Bears aren't terrific. And the last, 7 of their last 8 quarters, they've been playing pretty well. But Jaleel McLaughlin gave him a spark. Russell Wilson is, he's historically a slow starter. Now, granted, last year, aside was not his usual 4 or 5 game slow start. Last year was like a 14 game slow start. But it could be their defense isn't playing great. They need a lot of work. And as much as I want to pull for Javonte Williams and Cortland Sutton because I roster them, it still feels a little bit discombobulated in Denver.
On the flip side, Justin Fields had a pretty good game. He had something of an incredible first half, going 16 of 17, ended up 28 of 35, 335 yards, and 4 passing touchdowns, which was more than he had the entire season coming into the game. Ends up with a little bit of a lesser second half, got a few sacks, fumble, return for a touchdown, interception. Are you feeling better about Fields after this game?
Yeah, I'm feeling better, but that fumble that was returned for a touchdown, he can't give that up. He's got to be able to, sense that pressure and tuck that ball away. He completed 80% of his passes, had a 9.57 yards per attempt. So he was getting the ball downfield. Now the Bears do have some favorable passing matchups coming up, and I think 3 of the next 4 weeks they've got pretty good passing matchups. I want to see them take a turn. It's really interesting to me because when Fields went to the media and was seemingly throwing his coaches under the bus, everybody's like, oh, he's going to run more. He's going to run more. He ran it 4 times in this game. He didn't run it a lot last week when he had a great game. And so that whole, well, now Fields is going to start running it 15 times a game. And with his athleticism, we're going to have our floor back and stuff. He's passing the ball. An 80% completion rate is good. 335 yards, 4 touchdowns. For me, I want to see that offense grow around his skills and not pigeonhole him into being, oh, he's just a running quarterback and he'll pass occasionally. I like 35 pass attempts for him.
Yeah, we'll see how they do going up against Washington on Thursday night. That'll be a pick we will make at the end of today's show. Next up, probably the most surprising, I thought this would be the game of the week. The Miami Dolphins were 3-0 coming off of a 70-point game going into Buffalo. And Buffalo looked really good, coming away with the 48-20 victory. We'll get to Buffalo in a minute, but Dennis, for Miami, Devon Achane, another pretty big game. Only 8 carries, but got 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had 3 receptions on 5 targets. Greatly outproduced Raheem Mostert on about the same touches. And in the second half, looked like he kind of usurped Mostert's position. Do you like Achane going forward?
Yeah, I think he provides explosiveness. And my big concern is that he's 188 pounds. I don't know that you're going to expect him to get more than 8 to 10 carries per week anyways. So, this was a week where they only ran the ball, 17 times, not including a couple Tua scrambles. And so if they're going to throw the ball 35 times and run it 17 times, I don't know if they'll be able to keep up that kind of efficiency. We've seen them be a little more run heavy earlier. It was just a week where the Bills played good. And while Achane popped off a couple runs and was real productive for fantasy, I feel like, he played 60% of the snaps. He was in there. He was in a groove. There was no reason really for McDaniel to not play him, not give him opportunities, because he's producing when he gets him. But at some point, he's going to not average 12.6 yards a rush.
Yeah, he has been pretty explosive, though. On the other end, kind of a rough opening game, but since then we have seen the Bills just batter opponents, getting a 28-point win here, 5 total touchdowns from Josh Allen. Was this something of a statement game?
I don't know. Were there people out there saying that the Bills weren't good? I mean, I don't know. They're pretty good. Stephon Diggs is, he certainly had himself a nice squeaky wheel game this week. 6 catches, 120 yards, 3 touchdowns. My guy Gabe Davis produced 61 yards and a touchdown on 3 catches. So, Dalton Kincaid, it seems like he's taken a step in production while him and Knox are kind of splitting the snaps at the tight end position. Kincaid is starting to get more opportunities. James Cook didn't have a great day. He did punch one in. But I mean, the Bills are a good team, and I feel like them and the Dolphins are going to be going at it all season long. Uh, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if the next time they play, it's 48-20 the other way.
Something to certainly look out for. We had our first London game of the year, and that saw the Atlanta Falcons travel to battle the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wasn't much of a battle. Ended up 23-7. The Jaguars taking out the Falcons. Then the Falcons started 2-0, but wasn't largely due to their quarterback play. And we've seen in these last 2 weeks, both losses, some struggles. Desmond Ridder, 19 of 31, 191 yards and a touchdown, but had two very kind of bad interceptions. How long do you think the Falcons can stick with him if he keeps playing like this?
That's a great question. It would be a lot easier to answer if they didn't just have older Desmond Ridder on the bench behind him. Taylor Heineke, he's not the answer to any, let's go win a title quarterback question. They need to run the ball more with Algier and Bijan Robinson. They need to get a tight end that's not named Jonnu Smith involved. And at a 62% completion rate through 4 games, Ridder has to be better. I don't know why they think, why they're not getting the ball to Pitts and London more. I mean, London did have 7 targets with a touchdown on 3 catches. Pitts had 4 targets, but Bijan 5 targets, Jonnu Smith 6 targets. If you're going to throw the ball 31 times, you probably want to target London and Pitts more. That's just my 2 cents. I know Arthur thinks that's just because I play fantasy that I'm saying that. But I don't know. To me, it seems like a general philosophy, successful philosophy in sports is to get your good players the ball.
It would be nice to start getting the good players the ball. I guess we will find out. For the Jaguars, Zay Jones was out again, but it's another strong week for Christian Kirk. Aside from week 1, where he was kind of a relative non-factor, we've seen him be targeted pretty heavily. He got 12 targets, 8 receptions, 84 yards again. Is he back to being an every week start for you?
I think he was always a flex consideration. And, he's the number 2 wide receiver on that team. He's playing like the number 1 the last couple of weeks. I still think that Ridley is going to be just fine. But I mean, at 8 receptions on 12 targets that's a pretty good rate for your number 2. I think a lot of times what happens is that the defense kind of dictates whether it's going to be Ridley or whether it's going to be Kirk on any given pass play. And Kirk is making do with the targets he's getting. And when you catch the ball, the quarterback has confidence in you and wants to go back to you. I don't think it's a function of Ridley not getting open. He's an excellent route runner. It's just that Ingram is getting good opportunities. Kirk is getting good opportunities. They ran the ball 20 times with ETN. So it's just the way the game script goes sometimes.
On to a battle of the AFC North. Baltimore Ravens went into Cleveland. It wasn't really much of a game. Ravens come away with the 28-3 victory. Dennis, the Ravens are now 2-0 in their own division. They have a chance, if they can beat Pittsburgh this week, to go 3-0 in the division to start. Are they becoming the team to beat in the AFC North?
It's looking like it. They're in a division that's struggling with injuries. They're seemingly the healthiest. They got Mark Andrews involved is good. Zay Flowers is playing great. The running game, Gus was serviceable, 48 yards on 15 carries. Justice Hill was productive on 3 carries. Melvin was productive on 3 carries. So Lamar only threw the ball 19 times. So it wasn't like they were just running all over and putting up lots of yards. You know, when you've got a quarterback giving you the ball 3 times, it's easy to kind of get out ahead and then grind the clock.
For the Browns, Deshaun Watson ended up not being able to start. Dorian Thompson-Robinson didn't look as good as you hoped he might. The Browns are headed into a bye this week, one of the earlier byes. Hopefully that'll get Watson back. But they've been a little up and down. They had a big win week 1 against Cincinnati. They had a big win week 3 against the Titans. But kind of troubling turnover-plagued losses to division opponents in Pittsburgh and Baltimore. How are you feeling about the Browns?
Yeah, it was a tough week. Not having Deshaun Watson kind of threw a little monkey wrench into it. I know that they believe in DTR. They like his prospects. But we really got to see, for a guy that looked great in the preseason, this was definitely a bright, shining example of the difference between playing in preseason and playing in regular season. Because as good as he looked in preseason, he did not look good Sunday in the regular season. So I think DTR will be fine. Just a tough day all around.
On to the next battle, which saw the Cincinnati Bengals travel to the Tennessee Titans, come away with the 27-3 loss. Dennis, the Bengals are now 1-3. Their offensive woes seem to continue. They haven't scored a touchdown in the first half of any of these games. Is it time to start worrying about the Bengals?
If they keep trotting Burrow out there trying to play through that calf injury, I think so. I think, if you're playing in a 1-quarterback redraft league, I don't think you're starting Burrow. I think you got him on your bench. And if you're playing in a super flex league, I think you're seriously considering guys like Tannehill and Ritter over him. As bad as they're playing, I mean, Burrow can't step into the throw. He doesn't have any power. He's not mobile. I get it. You want to be a leader and you're a tough guy and you're showing your Southern Ohio Appalachian fighting spirit, but you're not doing the team any favors out there right now.
For the Titans, in the past couple of weeks, we had seen Derrick Henry not getting volume and not really producing. Back to this game, 22 carries, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Was able to catch a pass that was thrown to him. Are you feeling a little bit better about Henry and his usage?
He's going to be game script dependent. And, the first 3 weeks did not favor him. They were behind. Tannehill wasn't playing well, trying to dig him out. Tajay Spears was flashing in the passing game and in the running game. Spears hasn't been terribly efficient. He breaks a couple plays in there. It's all excitement, but he's not really putting up that many more points. Their snaps, Spears 51% to Henry's 56%, but their opportunities, Henry's still getting 70% of the opportunities versus 30% for Spears. And while that could potentially start to close, I do think that if Tennessee can get their receivers healthy and provide them with a little balance, it'll be better for the game script and allow Henry to produce for fantasy managers. I do think that if you roster Henry in fantasy, now's one of the times you're trying to move him. I'm not sure what you're going to get for him because people have watched him stink for 3 weeks and all off season. There was, we talk about how old running backs drop off a cliff and then he comes out of the gate laying eggs. He had a good game this week. You might have to sell at a discount, but if you can get, Jerome Ford and a wide receiver 4 for him or something, or Rashad White, and a backup tight end, bye week tight end, maybe you move off of him.
On to the next battle, which I was pretty happy. This broke my way from Pigskin Pick'em. The Los Angeles Rams went to the Indianapolis Colts, got the 29-23 victory. Dennis, the Rams are 2-2, but their losses to the Bengals, which potentially could be a good team, and the 49ers, who we know are a good team. Is it time to take the Rams a little more seriously? They got that kind of passing game going. Kyron Williams, Ronnie Rivers getting it done in the backfield. We get Cooper Kupp back this week.
They could cause some problems. I don't think they're contenders to go deep in the playoffs, but I could see them getting a wild card spot and maybe play. Maybe I don't know that they would win in the first round, but they can be dangerous. And if they get Cooper Kupp back and they can kind of blend Puka and Cooper Kupp's skill set so that they're both not doing the same thing. Right now, I think a lot of times we look at it and we're like, oh, Puka is just doing what Cooper Kupp does. And when Kupp comes back, what are they going to do with both of them? Because they both can't do that. It's probably true. So you're going to have to see like what other skill set does one of them have to pick up other areas of the passing game. Tutu is doing what Tutu does. He's getting downfield, playing very well. I think for me, the ticking time bomb on that team is Kyron Williams because he's getting a big workload. 25 carries this week, and yeah, he got two touchdowns. He also had 3 receptions. I don't want to be given a 199-pound, 203-pound running back 28 touches a game. No matter how good he looks, at some point you're going to be starting Ronnie Rivers. You keep doing that. So as well as he's playing, they've got to start to figure out a way to manage his workload so that he makes it through the season.
For the Colts, they battled back in this one. They're 2-2, very winnable division, it seems like, in the AFC South, where it's wide open. Every team is now 2-2. They've said that Jonathan Taylor is going to return to practice tomorrow. Do you think he gets activated? What would you expect kind of this transition to be?
They have said they're going to activate him, and that clock is going to start ticking. I think it all comes down to just how stubborn Taylor is going to be. Does he want to play? Does he just want out at any cost? He may end up having a Le'Veon Bell year, and that doesn't do anybody any good. I keep saying yes, he's going to come back, but by all means, consider the source. I think the way Zach Moss is playing, it gives Irsay the ammo to play hardball, though. He's like, look, we've got this guy that's like, that cost us $1, and he's out there busting his ass, putting up good numbers, and you want the moon. And I'm just telling you, we don't need to pay you that much. We want you here. We know you're good, but we just are, the market doesn't warrant giving you that money, unfortunately. And that's going to make Taylor unhappy. And I don't know that he'll want to play through that, but I don't know that he has a lot of choice other than lose a season, and he doesn't end up being a free agent at the end of it.
On to our next battle, which was in the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers went into New Orleans, got the 26-9 victory. Dennis, the Buccaneers still have a lot of talent on offense. They're now 3-1 and alone in first place. Could this team actually make the playoffs with Baker Mayfield?
Baker's QB 13 right now, so he's definitely in that streamable quarterback range in 1 QB leagues. Somebody's got to win that division, right? That's really what it comes down to. It's a little disheartening for me that Keyshawn Vaughn was able to stave off Sean Tucker for the second running back role, because with Rachaad White not being a very efficient runner, I wouldn't have minded a little Sean Tucker in there. But Chris Godwin, does what Chris Godwin does. He's right in the prime of his career, 8 passes for 114 yards. Even if you don't get the touchdown, you'll take that for fantasy. Evans, he started off good, but he got banged up the hamstring. So after 3 catches for 40 yards, the Evans and Lattimore battle was over.
Yeah, he's actually getting an MRI tomorrow. Bucks one of the 4 teams that are on a bye this week, so hopefully he'll be able to come back. But I don't know how you're feeling, Dennis, but Devin Tompkins looked like a guy that kind of stepped up and got some targets and some run when Evans went out. Might not be a bad deep league stash.
Yeah, Trey Palmer has looked good as well.
Trey Palmer's been involved, though. I think if you were looking to try to get somebody that isn't there, the 4 for 45 and a touchdown, Tompkins has seen his usage tick up a little bit the last couple of weeks. For the Saints, Alvin Kamara came back, got 11 carries, went for 51 yards, also got 13 receptions, but only for 33 yards. This Saints team really needs some kind of pop. What did you think of Kamara in his return?
I thought Kamara was great. I will take 13 receptions every day of the week. The yardage is insignificant to me. Would it have been great if he had 70 yards? Yes, it would have. Would it have been great if he got into the end zone? That would have been fantastic. But 11 carries for 51 yards. He was efficient on the ground with his opportunities there. They didn't run the ball a ton. If Derek Carr can't throw the ball down the field, and when I say down the field, I mean like 3 yards down the field. If he can't do that, I don't know why you've got him out there playing. I mean, he threw for 127 yards on 37 pass attempts. He was throwing horizontally, basically. Crazy. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. It's nice he was trying to gut it out for the team, but if his throwing arms in that shape, they would have been better off putting Jameson.
Well, I mean, after 1 week of Kamara being back, my trade for Kamara is working out much better than my trade for Burrow has in the show league.
Next up, the second Depression Bowl game was actually just depressing to watch, and that was the winless Vikings at the winless Panthers. The Vikings get the 21-13 victory. Dennis, the Vikings spotted the Panthers some points, and it took them a big third quarter to come back, 4 more turnovers. They're running the ball better, but they're still not playing very well. What do you make of the Vikings?
It's Justin Jefferson, and that's it. I mean, it's wild. Cousins only threw for 139 yards, but he only threw the ball 19 times. They did run it 23 times with Madison and Akers. So it was slow ball, grinded out. 6 receptions for 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson just doing Justin Jefferson things. I like the weapons that they have. It feels like the whole, the coaching dynamic is they're trying to transition to the new offense that the new coach wants to run. And I think they still have some players that maybe aren't a good fit for it. We'll see going forward, but you certainly don't expect Cousins to only throw the ball 19 times.
Yeah, and I mean, they just don't look good. There's been some chatter about would they move on. This team looks further away from being able to be a contender in the NFC than they were last year, which is not the direction you're looking to move, Bob. For the Panthers, they got spotted some points early. We have seen every quarterback that's played the Vikings defense, even this year, has just destroyed them. And yet Bryce Young, he didn't have turnovers, but he didn't look good either. 25 of 32, only 204 yards. Is he the best option for this team right now? Is it the best option for him to be out there playing?
I think it's good for him to be out there playing. for his development. I mean, there's no substitute for experience, and you get better by playing faster than you do by watching. That being said, I think Andy Dalton showed last week he was the guy prepared to move this team. On the plus side, Bryce's YPA was up 2 yards from his first 2 games, so that was good. He was getting the ball down the field. He targeted 8 different receivers, but they didn't get much in the run game, so there wasn't a ton of balance. But I do think there's a lot to like there. It just, it's a rookie quarterback, and there's going to be growing pains. They need to keep relying on Thielen, 7 for 75. Terrace Marshall leading them in targets out of nowhere was kind of crazy, but
no Mingo this week, so Mingo was out, so
yeah. But still, 10 targets and 9 catches. I mean, it was only 56 yards, but still, that's what you get with Bryce Young. I mean, but Miles Sanders isn't producing, and for a lot of chatter I've heard so far this week, it's like, oh, Sanders sucks, give the ball to Hubbard. I mean, Hubbard only had 2.9 yards a carry, so it isn't like Hubbard was.
Sanders is banged up, so
yeah, it wasn't like Hubbard was putting up, Devin Achane numbers.
Well, and I think part of the problem, younger quarterbacks maybe take a little bit more time. The line for the Panthers is not great, Bob. Not great.
There's a lot of that going around the NFL this year.
Speaking of rookie QBs and their development, the Houston Texans moved to 2-2 with a huge 30-6 beatdown of the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. Dennis, Pittsburgh's offense, Najee Harris, they remembered he could catch the ball, which was good. He had a little bit better running, but Kenny Pickett, 15 of 23, 114 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception before leaving with a bone bruise in his knee. He may or may not play this week, and they have a bye next week. But how are you feeling about Pickett? Is he even really a super flex consideration?
He's at the bottom end of it, but if he's someone you've got to consider benching, it just isn't happening. He did give Jalen Warren 6 targets, George Pickens 7 targets. I think getting Deontay Johnson back might help. I think he's a lot more of a steadying kind of player than Pickett or Calvin Austin is at this time. Given Najee Harris 14 carries, you like to see that. He produced 71 yards. So
I'd like to see 21 carries. But
yeah. So, but he did look better. It's just right now, I think he's going to be out this week. I think they're going to roll out Trubisky. We saw Travis Kelce miss a game with a bone bruise earlier this season. So, Pickett was one of those guys I think we expected. Did we expect him to be QB6? No, but I think we expected him to be in that, 12 to 16 range maybe, or at least have some games in the 12 to 16 range.
Yeah. For the Texans, C.J. Stroud continues to impress. He's actually set the record for total yards for a rookie in his first 4 games. 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, ran for 16 on 4 carries. Is he becoming an every week start?
He's QB 13 on the year, I think. No, maybe that changed because of he's QB 10 on the year. So I think you can toss him in your lineup and, until he shows you he shouldn't be there. He's doing well. It was a season low pass attempts with 30, and his completion percentage wasn't great, but he did throw for over 300 yards, put it in the end zone twice. Dameon Pierce was a little better on the ground, and I think that helps to balance things a little bit, gives them a little more of a balanced offense. 81 yards, only 3.4 yards per carry, but Nico Collins had a monster game. There's chemistry there between the Buckeye and Wolverine. It was sad that Tank Dell, after a couple games of popping off, only had 1 catch.
He was waiting for me to start him.
Yeah. Robert Woods caught 3 passes. Dalton Schultz caught 3. So, I think they're starting to round into real nice shape with some startable fantasy assets. I think we're still waiting for them to get their offensive line back intact. And I
I know
think once they do, it'll start to click a little bit.
it's been impressive what they've done, missing those pieces. The Washington Commanders, fresh off a beatdown at the hands of the Bills, went into Philadelphia, and they played the Eagles hard, going all the way to overtime, coming up just short, 34-31. Commanders 2-2, but they've had, they had the loss to Buffalo, a pretty respectable loss to the Eagles, their other one. Is it time to take them a little more seriously?
Sam Howell was gutsy and he's a fighter. And I think it's a travesty that Ron Rivera didn't let him go for 2 to win the game. I mean, Philadelphia is clearly a more talented team than Washington. I know Philly's kind of been up and down a little bit this year, but Robinson's playing pretty well. Sam Howell he's just gritty. He's going to be one of those QB2 guys for fantasy that I don't know how much runway he's going to get before they're like, let's just bring in somebody with an elite profile and see how hard they can push this fifth rounder. But McLaurin had a good game, 8 for 86. Curtis Samuel. Would have liked to have seen Jahan Dotson convert a few more, but Dotson's the guy getting the deep shots on that team, so his catch rate is going to be a little bit lower. I think, if they can get their team to, they got to keep rallying around it's us against the world. Do I think they're a contender for the playoffs? Probably not. But I think they can have a good year and a year to build on, just as long as they don't build on it like the Giants did last year.
For the Eagles, there are only 2 undefeated teams left in the NFL, the Eagles and the 49ers. But where the 49ers have seemed to dominate in every phase of the game so far, the Eagles, their defense has still been pretty strong. The offense has looked a little less dominant than they were last year. What do you make of this Eagles team so far?
I think they're still finding their way in the run game. I know that Swift is the guy kind of out there right now, but they only ran the ball 18 times from the running back position. And I think ideally they'd like to run it a little bit more. I mean, Hurts had 9 carries as well. They threw the ball 37 times. This was a A.J. Brown squawking game. He caught 9 passes, 175 and 2. So, I mean, the game, the Philadelphia offense runs through Brown and Smith via Jalen Hurts. So I get it. We want we want Swift to do well because, running backs are hard to come by. But I don't think we're going to get that 130-yard production that we had a couple weeks ago out of Swift. So you kind of got to take that fantasy production where you can get it, 50 yards and a touchdown on the ground and 4 receptions. That's a good game from DeAndre Swift. But it's going to be alternating weeks of Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown most of the season is where the big numbers are really going to come for fantasy.
On to the afternoon games. The Los Angeles Chargers hosted the Las Vegas Raiders. Jimmy Garoppolo was ruled out with a concussion, so we got to see rookie Aiden O'Connell. Chargers opened up 24-7 halftime lead and decided that they didn't need to play the second half, or at least that's how it appeared, coming away with the 24-17 victory. Dennis, what did you think of rookie Aiden O'Connell in his first showing?
You can't put the ball on the ground 3 times and throw an interception and expect to win the game. I don't think, he didn't get a ton of support from the running game. While they ran it 20 times, it wasn't.
That's been depressing, to tell you the truth. Josh Jacobs, we keep waiting for him to pick it up. It ain't happening so far.
Well, he caught 8 passes for 81 yards in the passing game, so you love that. Devontae Adams, he's the guy. Where'd he go? Jacoby Myers. I think we would have liked to have seen a little more production out of him. I don't know why we're targeting Jacob Johnson and Austin Hooper when we've got Jacoby Myers. But, maybe Aiden O'Connell just doesn't know better yet, and McDaniels will fix him this week. I thought O'Connell was okay. I mean, it's not like he's setting the world on fire. 238 yards is fine, but 3 turnovers and another fumble of yours that you recovered. Would Brian Hoyer have done better? I don't think so. I don't know that Hoyer. I mean, for Hoyer, it probably would have been 3 interceptions and a fumble instead of 3 fumbles and an interception. So make of that what you will. Now, the one thing I did notice, so in looking at fantasy points data, O'Connell has a better YPA than Bryce Young, Joe Burrow, and Daniel Jones. So that's not saying a whole lot. He has the highest off-target throw of any quarterback with 40 dropbacks, 26.5%, and that's out of 35 quarterbacks. And he doesn't handle pressure well. So until he can handle pressure better, I think you'll see those kind of turnovers.
For the Chargers, we've seen their offense put up some big numbers the first 3 weeks, and the defense kind of failed them. This game, they came out of the gate hot and sort of faded in the second half. What do you make of this Chargers team?
Man, they must have missed Mike Williams.
I guess. And Herbert broke a finger on his hand now, so it's a good thing that they had him run 12 times.
Right. No, I think, they only threw the ball 24 times. They ran it. I mean, Herbert ran the ball 12 times. And I know that's nice to see. I think I'd like to have a little more. If he's going to run the ball 12 times, I want more than 27 yards. 2 touchdowns is great, but if he's going to run at 12, I'd like 45 yards. So, yeah. Do you hear that, Brandon Staley? But they've been an enigma under Staley, and I don't think that they're going to change. And they have a lot of talent. It'll be interesting to see if Staley can keep his job.
Not looking good. The more marquee afternoon matchup, the New England Patriots went into Dallas, but they did not really show up, ending up losing 38-3. Mac Jones, 12 of 21, 150 yards, 2 interceptions, ended up getting the hook in the third quarter for Bailey Zappi, who wasn't a whole lot better. It's now year 3 for Mac. Of course, his third offensive coordinator system. But do you think he's the future for the Patriots?
I mean, who are you going to replace him with? I mean, that's it. That's really the question that you have to ask. I don't think Bailey Zappi is the answer. I think they play Malik Cunningham more at wide receiver than they do quarterback. So I don't think he's going to be the answer. I don't know that they're going to be in a position next year to draft one of the top quarterbacks in this draft. I don't know that they'll be in a position to sign a free agent. So I think he is the near-term future. Whether he's the long-term future, I don't know. It'll be nice if Bill O'Brien sticks around for 2 or 3 years so they can kind of get settled down. Maybe if they can, they need to hire somebody that knows how to scout wide receivers, because they can't sign wide receivers. They can't draft wide receivers. It's a train wreck on what they do with wide receivers. And I don't know if that's systemic, if that's we're only going to spend X amount of money unless we have an opportunity for a Randy Moss or something. But they've it's like they have made their hay in the wide receiver room so long with these late round picks like, Troy Brown and stuff, Wes Welker, who's a free agent signing, that they're like, we can keep doing that. And they clearly can't. So I think Jones is going to be the quarterback for the next 2 or 3 years, and we'll see what happens when contract time rolls around. But he's also got to play better.
Dennis, for the Cowboys, Jake Ferguson came in as tight end 11 through 3 weeks, caught 7 passes for 77 yards to lead the Cowboys. Is he a tight end 1 for you right now?
I think he's definitely in the consideration. Numbers like that, even without touchdowns, are going to put you in that back end tight end 1 to mid tight end 1 range. And so if he can keep it up, lately the talk I've heard about Dak has been that he throws to the tight end so much because he can't read defenses and he knows where the tight end is at. So I don't know if that's the case or not. Ferguson did lead them in targets and catches. So,
I mean, he was wide open. Could also be because everybody's focused on CeeDee Lamb and the other receivers aren't credible right now either. The last of the late afternoon games saw the Arizona Cardinals travel to battle the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers getting the 35-16 victory. Dennis, rookie wide receiver Michael Wilson, 7 catches, 76 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's continuing to pick it up. Are you liking him more for fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, what we liked about Wilson was that he brought something that the rest of the receivers didn't have, and that was size. What we didn't like is that he was basically injured every year of his college career. So he didn't have a great production profile, good athletic profile. I think he's stepped into an opportunity. He's developed good rapport with Josh Dobbs, and he takes pressure off of Marquise Brown, and he kind of fills that intermediate route area. And when he's throwing the ball, he's catching it. And that's what you want. You got Zach Ertz short, Marquise Brown deep, and Michael Wilson in the middle putting up numbers.
For the 49ers, let me just read you this line. 20 carries, 106 yards, 3 touchdowns, 7 receptions, 71 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets. Is Christian McCaffrey making a strong case to be NFL MVP?
I was listening to Michael Fabiano on Fantasy Dirt the other day, and I'm pretty sure it was his show. And he said that if it wasn't for those 2 seasons that McCaffrey was injured, that we would be talking about him like LaDainian Tomlinson. And the way he's playing, you can't. It's hard to argue. 20 carries for 106 yards and 3 touchdowns, 7 catches for 70. I mean, and it's like easy for him. He's doing a good job of avoiding taking a beating. I mean, and he's not a big guy. He's a 5'11" and like 209. It isn't like he's a big bruiser or anything, but he is a perfect fit for this offense. And as long as he stays healthy, I don't think there's anybody that's going to catch him for, maybe fantasy player of the year, let alone running back 1. And he's just crushing it.
Sunday Night Football saw the Kansas City Chiefs go into New York and get the 23-20 win over the Jets. Some would argue it was referee-aided victory. But Dennis, for the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco, 20 carries, 115 yards, and a touchdown. Actually saw a couple of targets, caught 3 passes for 43 yards, was easily the best part of the Chiefs' offense. Is he establishing himself as a pretty solid RB2 for you?
Well, this was a homecoming game for Pacheco, and you know how a lot of times they want to, the birthday games, the revenge games. So Pacheco's from New Jersey and went to Rutgers. So they were going to try to feature him, but he produced over 100 yards rushing, touchdown, caught the passes he was supposed to catch. I think for him, as long as he keeps improving in the passing game, it's going to be hard to take him off the field. Now, his playing style lends itself to him getting injured, so we'll have to make sure we keep an eye on him so he doesn't get banged up. But with the receiving core outside of Kelsey being so inconsistent, I think he's somebody that you're looking at as a RB1 for the rest of the season.
For the Jets, Zach Wilson looked, he's been very heavily scrutinized, looked a little better. 28 of 39, got 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did kind of have that fumble late in the game. There were also some calls that really didn't break the Jets' way. Do you feel a little bit better about Wilson and the Jets after this game?
Yeah, I think he showed some fight, played better than he has in the past. For him, he's another one that, I mentioned with O'Connell that he struggles with pressure, but I think he did a good job avoiding pressure and getting away from pressure. Made a couple questionable throws, but I think he played well. And, it was interesting to watch the post-game presser where this year when he made a mistake, he was accountable for it. It was, I have to do better. I can't make that play. I have to make sure that, we put ourselves in the position. And, maybe he's another one of these guys that is going to benefit from sitting. Now, he isn't going to sit this year, but maybe after being in the league a couple of years now and getting exposed to some players, some veteran players that, maybe it's all kind of sinking in and clicking for him, and he'll have a decent year. I like that he played well.
Yeah, and it does seem like he's gotten his teammates back on his side, which was, I think, one of the killer things that led to him getting benched last year. When you had the offensive linemen wearing the backup quarterback's face on their shirts, not a great sign.
Right.
The Monday night game was also pretty much a dud. Seattle went into New York and got the 24-3 victory. Dennis, the Seahawks got blown out at home in week 1, but since then they've quietly won 3 straight, including going to Detroit, which is a team we like. Their offensive numbers aren't always gaudy, but their defense seemed to be picking up. Are they kind of an under-the-radar team?
Yeah, I think, if Walker can put up, if Walker can be consistent, he did a good job not trying to bounce everything outside this week. Zach Charbonnet looked good in the backup role. They've got good wide receivers. I'd really like to see them have Jackson Smith and Jigba run something besides a flare. So maybe his ADOT can go, he could double his ADOT to 2 yards per catch.
That 3.5 fantasy points isn't doing that for you.
Yeah, but they've got some good players. They select. It'd be nice to have if they had a tight end you could count on. But between Fant and Disley and Parkinson, none of them are start worthy. The passing game, the receiving game is all about Metcalf and Lockett. I think they're weekly starts. Smith and Jigba is a bye week guy right now. Even with six targets, hit 6 targets, 3 catches for 5 yards. And I mean, I don't know who doesn't believe in him downfield in Seattle, but if that's how you were going to use him, you should have just kept Travis Homer and not drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba.
For the Giants, they were a playoff team and a really great story last year. Daniel Jones parlayed a pretty good year into a long-term contract, but he has looked completely lost at times, many times. Did get sacked 10 times, which is not a great reflection on the offensive line, but 27 of 34, 203 yards, and an interception. Also had a fumble. Did carry 66 yards on 10 carries. Second game, they've been without Saquon Barkley, but this team is 1-3, and they have been really badly outplayed. They have the worst point differential in the league, even worse than a Broncos team that lost by 50 points in week 3. What do we make of the Giants?
Man, they're a dumpster fire. It is just, and last year when they were playing well, we would say just about every week, they're playing great, but they're a year early. And so even though they played good last year, I think we all expected them to take another step. Second year with the new coach, the quarterback, the offensive coordinator, and it's just, I know the offensive line is not playing well. Evan Neal on the right side is terrible, is just not playing good at all. Andrew Thomas has been out. It's the O-line is in shambles. Not having Barkley, none of the wide receivers have really stepped up to become the guy, but also none of them with the pressure that offensive line gives up. It isn't like I get it. Everybody's like, well, throw the ball down the field. And it's like, you don't have time to throw the ball down the field. There just isn't time for him to do that. So you can't use Slayton or Hyatt in that streak pattern, having them run deep. It's just a complete and utter train wreck. With QBs with 50 dropbacks, Jones is 30th out of 35. And YPA at 5.8 yards per attempt. He's 12th in fastest time to pressure. So, no wonder he's getting rid of the ball short. He's got pressure on him. 33rd in deep throws and 31st in yards per play. It's because he's under pressure as soon as he's got the ball in his hands, and he's trying to make stuff happen. And he doesn't have that Patrick Mahomes creativity to be able to pull a rabbit out of his hat on every snap that he's under pressure on. And it shows. He's a guy that needs protection, that needs to have time to make throws and go and run. He needs a balanced offense. I think they did him dirty by not bringing in actual stud wide receivers. Not that would help the blocking, but I mean, is the wide receivers they got. As much as I love Paris Campbell as a Buckeye, they need somebody that's an alpha.
Yeah, they can't block, and I'm just going to continue to say that they can't get, that acquisition of Darren Waller looked great on paper, has been somewhat of a dud in terms of actual production. But going back to the question I had asked you about the Patriots, I think Daniel Jones and what we've seen this year is sort of the cautionary tale that makes me wonder if the Patriots are going to hedge their bets on Mac Jones. And I would say they've put, both those quarterbacks have been put in similarly grim situations, sometimes with the weapons they've had to work with and the offensive structures that they've had around them. I like Brian Daboll when he was running things in Buffalo, but there was a real bad vibe between them on the sidelines last night. I don't know if you've seen when he walks over and essentially flips the tablet in his direction, which, I get being frustrated, but if that relationship is broken, I don't even know how they potentially go forward. Well, that is a wrap on the week 4 that was. We have the first blush of week 5 coming up on Thursday. Remember, there are 4 teams on a bye: the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Chargers, the Browns, and I just blanked on the 4th team that I had to pull out of my lineups. It surprisingly wasn't the Falcons. I remember a time when you used to go to London and you would, the Seahawks are the other team that's out. So those 4 teams make sure to make alternate plans. The Thursday night football game features the Chicago Bears 0-4 at the 2-2 Washington Commanders. Dennis, is there any part of you that's tempted to pick the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, I'm picking the Bears.
Oh, you are picking the Bears.
I am picking the Bears. Now, I know, so the Commanders give up the second most fantasy points to running backs, and the Bears the Bears give up the second most fantasy points to running backs. And so the Commanders are going to try to run Brian Robinson because that's what he's good at. The Bears also give up the second most touchdown passes. So they're going to need to kind of work that out. But Justin Fields is playing great, and the Commanders give up the third most rush yards to quarterbacks. And I know Fields hasn't ran a lot this year, and even after the whole kerfuffle in the media, we expected him to run more. At some point, he's going to run more, and I think that point's going to be this week. The Commanders are giving up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers on the 12th fewest targets. So the Bears don't have to throw the ball a lot to beat the Commanders down the field with Darnell Mooney, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. Now he's not a wide receiver, and I didn't look up any information on tight ends, but I like the Bears to pull out the victory here.
I'm taking the Commanders. I think there's no way. I guess we'll see, but I just don't think. I think Chicago needs some big changes.
Oh, changes are coming. Actually, I saw an unreliable source tweet that Eberflus would be out if he doesn't win this week. And an unreliable response said, the Bears don't do that. They don't fire their coaches at midseason, especially this early. So
I guess we'll see. I mean,
whatever.
Stranger things have happened, I suppose. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Dennis and I will be back on Friday with a full preview of the rest of the Week 5 slate. Only 13 more games after Thursday night. We will also recap what happens. But for the rest of the time between now and when football returns, Dennis, how can people fill their days?
Go to your favorite podcast platform and hit that subscribe button. Just download those episodes. You can listen to us, don't listen to us, just download it though. Let us get that little early Christmas present. Leave us a rating and a review.
You heard it here. We will see you guys on Friday. Enjoy the Thursday night.